Before I play the intro, I am happy to announce that Nate Suckfeld has been cut, not waived, cut. That means he's off the roster. The only decision to make is whether or not they waive Jake Fromm now out of the quarterback room. They announced Hendon Hooker is the number 2, though. So that's the decision to be made. Let's watch the intro.
Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick TV, Facebook, and YouTube. Get all your sports news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B, Wrestling Roundup, The Big Football Show, and more, Shield TV, Lions Villain Report, and Red Zone Rant. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla, Grosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, The Bodkin Show, Spirit of Detroit Podcast, and Maniacs. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Skull Gang 365, The Huddle Sports Network Open Mic, First and 10 with Foz, Main Event Football Show, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports. Spitballing Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, Puckett, 313 Den Podcast, The Guys Huddle, Shots from the Sideline, Let's Talk Sports, The Michigan Truth Sports Podcast, Off the Rails, NFC Northeast, Power Hours, and Detroit Lions News. Make sure you follow, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Hope you like all the shows.
Here locally in the community, make sure y'all go check out Kneecap Body by Jeremy Gilmore.
Wouldn't you know it, 10 minutes after I set up the show, the first cut of today is gone. Nate Suckfeld is gone. Pat O'Connor went last night after our show. And Steven Gilmore has been gone. So now we're up to 10 off the roster. We got quite a few more to go. They have announced that Hooker is the QB2 already. So we know that the decision is whether or not they waive or cut Jake Fromm. I think they will waive him because this would have been his 4th year in the league. So, yes, this is for the Suckfeld dance. And that's according to Brad Galley, who's at Allen Park while they're doing all this. He reported that Hendon Hooker is QB2. So we know that's who's staying on the roster. With the no third QB on the roster, the only thing we can hope for is that Fromm clears waivers when they waive them. So let's go through this chat real quick. Moonscar Blade, Waymo the Hedge Lion. We got Paul Jones, Rick, everybody coming in today. Man, it's a hot day for news. I will say there is an intriguing defensive end prospect that was drafted last year that I liked as a sleeper in the draft, and that was Andre Carter II, was waived by the Vikings. If we end up cutting down to 5 defensive ends, I wouldn't mind taking a flyer, adding him to the 53 as the 6th guy. Against the Eagles in that offensive line when the starters are going, that actually is a guy that could be come in on the back end. Yeah, Carter graduated from Army from West Point. Yes. So after his career is done, he has to go do 2 years of deployment, whether as a recruiter or something like that. During the off season, he has to have 2 weeks off between OTAs and training camp to go and be a recruiter also while he's in the military, or while he's in the NFL, I mean. So imagine if the Vikings signed Suckfeld to replace Darnold. Oh my God. Let me get all the way up. We got Paul Jones, Dwayne Keene, Trace, Fruity Fred. Well, at the same time, I will say in that last preseason game for Minnesota, he had 2 sacks and a strip, as well as 3 tackles. So he actually had a really good game against a very deep O line, you know. Will Vogs, do you ever file charges against yourself for sexual harassment for rubbing your chin? Oh God, it's starting already. We got King SJ in, Will Vogel, Joseph Osteen. It's great to see everybody. But who's next? Who is next on the chopping block? I think it's going to be another running back. It should be Jake Funk. And I like them at Army. I say if the Lions defense doesn't live up to standards, hire Connor Stallions as defensive coordinator. Oh God. Uh, Yoli Cruz, Top Huddle Sports Network fan. Good morning, everyone, and hello, JB. She's also our resident Packers fan. Would I go after Noah Brown? Matt Henry says morning, JB, and I said, would I? I wouldn't trade. I would not trade for anybody right now. I would watch the waiver wire, see who's available at where we're picking. I mean, I understand we picked late in the draft and we're kind of last in the pecking order. But if somebody's been sitting there a couple of days, a la Hakeem Butler, no one else has made a play for him, I would. I would rather bring in a guy off the waiver wire. And while we are all clamoring for that big bodied wide receiver, we have to remember one thing. We have been a top 5 to top 10 offense 2 years in a row without a big bodied wide receiver. You could say Josh Reynolds was borderline, but he was only 6'3". And I also heard, you know, DPJ's only 6'3". So that's not really a big bodied receiver to me. Big bodied receiver is 6'4" and up because that's your traditional big bodied receiver we saw for so many years. 6'3" and under, they're not slot guys, they're not quite outside guys, they're tweeners. 6'2" and under, you can put them anywhere on the roster, as we've seen, and that's what we've lived with. The only guy that a slot guy size is Khalif Raymond. Caleb Farley has been released. That doesn't move the needle. People Jones was cut yesterday, Ricky Sakat. He's gone. Gone. He was cut. Zylstra was waived. Bam Knight was waived. So those are guys that could make it back to the practice squad if somebody doesn't poach them. Well, if you think about it, oh, he and Sudfeld both cut. Wow, yep. Once the Chicago Bears acquire Micah Parsons, we'll sweep the Detroit Lions for years to come. Well, unfortunately for you, Micah Parsons has already said he'll play under the 5th-year option. He will play under the tag and accept his contract that year. Agent over, God, oh my God! Now you're delusional. Yeah, little Michael dreaming again for the teddy bears. Don Burr, haven't seen you in here for a minute. Good to see you, brother. David Barnett, when Brad misses on receiver, remember St. Brown. I don't think he's missed on a drafted receiver yet because Chicago Talk Sports Talk makes like Aerosmith and Dream On. Amen, Ricky Sakat. There you go. If Bajent was better at golf, they wouldn't have drafted LGBTQ. Uh, now that he's actually been waived, yes, I don't mind Tim Patrick as a waiver wire pickup. I What's my source? An interview on NFL Network where he said that to Peter Schrager. Micah Parsons said that because he was asked about everything that was going on in the offseason. And he goes, well, I'm actually very comfortable with playing under the tag after my 5th-year option and then doing the contract in my 7th year. So, I mean, that came right out of the horse's mouth. I watched the interview. It ain't a trust me thing. It's out there. You can go find it. It was like a month ago. Yeah, that foul wind is called Soldier Field, Moonscar Blade. Yeah, you have to wait in line to get Patrick because he was waived. He wasn't cut. He was waived. So we're one of those last 4 teams. There's a difference. Micah Parsons isn't on the trade block, though. Montez Sweat was on the trade block. What's amazing is that Chicago was nowhere to be found last season. You guys get a rookie QB with no regular season experience in the NFL, and y'all are Super Bowl contenders. Bears fans are calling. No, Montez Sweat did not. They tried to move him prior to the season last year, and nobody bid on him because their asking price was too high at the time. The asking price didn't change till closer to the trade deadline. That's the facts about that, Chicago sports. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just telling you like it is. He was on the trade block at the draft. He wanted out. Montez Sweat did not want to be there. That's why he didn't even really show up until he got to the Bears. He wanted a contract extension. They didn't want to give it. He said, "Let me go." I'm just telling you what happened last season. And he played like it until he was traded. He was fine in pressures, but he wasn't getting sacks. He gets to you guys, he starts getting sacks because he was happy to be out of Washington. The foreskins have been a hemorrhoid to this league, especially under the Dan Snyder years. Uh, the Bears are like second or third in money next year. Next year. So they don't have it this year, but they do next year. But he's playing under his 5th-year option next year, and then he'll play under his tag. He's already told everybody this. There's a difference. Parsons wants to be a Cowboy. Montez Sweat didn't want to be a Commander last year. He was trying to get out before the season even started. Uh, there's a chance that Derice Fontaine and the way he played with the ones in camp versus how he played in preseason is the 5th what? Oh, that happened over 20 minutes ago. It happened prior to me going live, Moonscar Blade. He has been cut. Darren Ryan, good morning. Yes, how are you? Yeah, if they don't get at least 9 wins, I can see that, Joseph. Everybody said CD Lamb would get traded because he was holding out. Guess what? He got re-signed yesterday. I thought it was gonna happen by Friday, it happened Monday. I knew it was gonna happen before the regular season because CeeDee Lamb's not gonna miss a game check. Moonscar Blade, thanks the lords of common sense. Amen. I mean, it's not rocket science. Um, we're either gonna end up keeping Derice Fontaine because he has not been let go yet, or we will grab somebody in the waiver wire because the waiver wire goes straight to the 53. So that is what's going to happen. We have until 4 p.m. today to get to our 53. And the clock on the waiver wire starts at Tuesday, 4 p.m. Got any kickers over there? We got Jake Bates. That's better than Andrews Carlson, evidently, since that's who the Packers just released. You had our kicker that we threw away earlier in the season, and you cut him. And that you really didn't give him a chance to get acclimated there. I think it's going to be either Skipper and Manu, or it's going to be Sorsdahl and Skipper. Caleb Williams wants the Chicago Bears to trade for Micah so they will listen to their franchise quarterback. Oh my God, he hasn't even played down in regular season, and you guys are calling him a franchise quarterback already. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in 7 drives. So I'm thinking he could end up being the next Bustin Fields because he had the exact same completion percentage that Bustin Fields had his rookie year. 50%, 0 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Hmm. Sounds all way too familiar. Finally put weapons in there and then trade away the guy that'd been there. Did not do well at one time. He had to play at guard when the one guy went down in game 1. That's why he had a low PFF grade. Um, Yeah, he rushed it. I said 1 rushing touchdown. Same exact stats as Bustin Field year 1. 50% completion percentage, a lot of yards, 1 rushing touchdown. That's it. Tell Rome to keep his feet in. Hard to do that when you got a cornerback hitting you as you catch the ball. I blame that on poor placement. Throw it 3 yards further in. I'm not calling Caleb a franchise QB yet, but I do believe he's better than Fields. Chicago sports talk, lay off the huffing. Your last 2 brain cells are in danger. Um, I think they are a 8 to 10 win team at best. I'm not I'm not doing hate. I'm being realistic because that defense is legit. The O-line is the biggest question. If Caleb has to run for his life, it's going to be a rough year for Caleb. Can Skipper catch? Yes, he can. He was tackle eligible on 25 plays, targeted on 5, caught 3. QB's tough to figure. History says aim low. They have an outside shot at being a 3rd team out of the North in the playoffs, is what I say. Bunch of new shiny weapons with a okay O-line. Hopefully they're better than last year. If they're not, it's going to be a long year in Chicago. That's all I got to say. Unfortunately, I'm not as high on Indy because they got Jacksonville and Texans to go through. And everybody can say, oh, this, that, and the other. But Jacksonville does have a good roster. The Texans have a great roster. And Indy is just starting to build their roster around their QB. I don't see them as quite complete team as the other ones. And Washington's just one. Amen, Matt Henry. You're preaching to the choir. I've talked about it lots of times. Now let's see if there's any more news right now because I got my buddies sending me stuff. I seen a bunch of nobodies got released. There is a big wide receiver that's on the waiver wire. Oh, he's actually a cut. Isaiah Hodgins, the big guy out of New York that did nothing. Oh, what's up? I made it up north. That's great. Glad to hear it, Patty Grimes. If you're ranking a rookie above proven NFL playoff quarterbacks, you're as delusional as they come. Now, I do put Caleb above Sam Darnold, but I will not put him above playoff proven quarterbacks. It's Goff, Love, Caleb's Sam Darnold. Be prepared to read every cut receiver possibly becoming a Lion. I know it happens every time. Every time somebody's cut, waived, or put on the trade block, oh, let's get them. Fans are clamoring about it, but wipe your mouth, Chicago sports. Tim Patrick, Isaiah Hodgins, and Joseph Austin says, hello, Patty. I'm in Leelanau. Yes, he's up north at the lake. All right. The Texans have released Noah Brown. That's somebody I'd be interested in. Oh, you're going to be in Traverse City? That's a very nice area. Did you take the tunnel through the trees? And Noah is a big, yeah, he's at 6'3 ish, 6'4. But like I said, wait, you probably don't have to trade or anything for these wide receivers that everybody was looking at. And what's weird is Noah Brown was a favorite target for CJ Stroud last year. Smoking Dad in the building. Dad, Suckfeld's gone. I just said in a Minnesota chat, Suckfeld was cut if you need a backup QB. LOL. Yeah, it runs from Petoskey to the Traverse City area down 119. I have been through it. Would you go after Robinson? Robinson who? Thinking about doing the Sky Bridge in Boyne City. Yep, the Tunnel of Trees runs from Traverse City to Petoskey. I think Mullins would outplay Suckfeld. That's debatable. Probably though. He throws for more yards and more picks. Now who are we going to complain about? I know. I know. No, they actually got rid of Suckfeld? Hallelujah. Smoking dad with a I don't know. I think they're debating over Jalen Cahoon and Derice Fontaine because they were practice darlings, but they didn't do much underneath the lights. I hate either one. I love the idea of hitting the waiver wire or one of these roster cuts and bringing somebody in. The guys I'm not high on is Michael Thomas. His contract comes with an automatic 4-game IR stint. That guy misses more time than anyone we've had on the roster. He misses more time than Ziggy Ansah. Ugh. So then another one I heard was another guy who's aging. Tim Brown is the only one I'm not as high on as everybody else. Tim Brown hasn't had a healthy season in 3 seasons since he tore his ACL. He's never been the same guy. His last healthy season, he was good, but that was 3 years ago. I always rode my bike on M22, then headed up to Petoskey to do the tunnel through the trees, M119. Yes, I know. I love that. It's right there. We every time we go to Traverse City, we take the tunnel through the trees because it's a beautiful drive. I like stopping at that one Polish pub that makes the hunter stew with all the different uh, wild game meat in it. It's so good. Fountain is at least 6'2". Calhoun is 5'11" and seemed to mishandle the ball. I know. I love M22. It's such a beautiful drive. And M119 is beautiful too. Whew, coffee is flowing. Legs in. That's it. If I saw it, I knew it. Yes, that hunter stew is so damn good. Every time I go there, that's all I have. Here's all the other guys: Jacqueline Roy, Andre Carter, James Lynch, Bobby McLean, Tyrese Robinson, Bo Richter, Keen Wanu, and Miles Gaskin from the Vikings. You know what? That's because thank goodness I saw more progression in 3 games from Hooker than in years of Sudfeld. Sad but true, LOL. Um, you can say that, but at the same time, in 4th and 3 and under, the Lions made it because they were 86% successful in that situation in the season. They were 66% 66% successful at anything over 5 yards. So at that point, the Lions had the highest 4th down completion percentage in NFL history. Well, David Barnett, if you watch, Skipper didn't declare eligible. He never touched his chest. He never got within 20 yards of the goddamn ref in that game. Decker was the one sitting there right in front of the ref doing this. And You're preaching to the choir. We all know what happened, and if that wide receiver that remains unnamed and not on the roster actually caught the ball that hit him in the hands twice on both of those fourth downs, if we complete either one of them, San Francisco doesn't win that game. But ifs and could have beens don't count. What happened is what happened. Here's a fun fact: Bears have been irrelevant since 2008. Well, they did have that stint with Trubisky, but they lost on a double doink. There is a bar in Adrian that had a menu on the wall that listed a lot of exotic food: shark steak, turtle soup, fried grasshoppers. Go Lions. Oh, I know that. I don't deny that at all, Chicago sports. It took Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes to gut the roster of all the Quinn Trasha crap. How big is Brown? 6'3". But at the same time, we haven't had a guy who was consistent at 6'3" other than Josh Reynolds. And that's the one I didn't want to name today. But if he'd have caught either one of those passes on fourth down, we'd have won that game. Moonscar Blade, I wonder what rule the Lions can help the NFL get changed after getting screwed this season. I don't know, but you know they will. The third challenge that got changed. Now, if you get either one successful, you get third channel. What up? Go Smoke, go Lions. I only know this because you can't get to heaven in my dad's car because it stopped at every bar. Oh man, yeah, that's funny. Love you, Dad. Suckfeld's gone, Pat O'Connor's gone, and the rest of the list, and Steve and Gilmore's gone, but the rest of the list from yesterday, other than Pat O'Connor, Caden Davis, DPJ, Shane Zylstra, Bam Knight, Bruce Hudson, Scott Daly, and Mitchell Agood, all gone. Wow, been a Lions fan my whole life. I had no clue. Thanks, Chicago, for informing me on how bad my franchise is. And in all actuality, we wouldn't have Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes if Sheila Hamp didn't take over as ownership. So I give a lot more credit to Sheila Hamp than I do what Chicago sports did, because she brought in Chris Spielman, Barry Sanders, and two former GMs to hire our head coach and our GM. And they weren't former Lions GMs. They brought in GMs from successful franchises, former GMs. She brought football minds in because she says, what I am is competitive. I will not accept what we've had over in the past 50 years, and I will make us a competitive team. She apologized for the 3 years of suffering because of her mom hiring Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. No, I don't. We haven't had one. Why do we? We've been a top 5 offense 2 years in a row without a big X. So I don't see it as a big need. It's fans, the casual fans that think, "Oh God, we have to have one," because we've never had one since Calvin Johnson retired. But the difference is, Goff got it done and got us to the NFC Championship game with what we had on the roster last year. So while we all can bag on Goff because he's not this, that, or the other, what he is a great game manager that's as good as the team around him. And as long as the team that's built around him is this good, we have nothing to worry about. And I told you this, Lion King. I don't know until the cuts are done. I still think we're probably going to carry 6 defensive ends and 5 defensive tackles. If it changes, it'll be the other way around. It'll be 5 D ends and 6. Reynolds was 6'3", but he wasn't an X. He was not an ex-receiver. Uh, my dad, I'm probably one of the only subscriber who listened to the Lions' last championship on the radio. I know, I'm so sick of so I am sick of so-called Lions fans just blaming Dan Campbell for losing to San Francisco. Hey, you know what? It was a plethora of things that made us lose. The offense not calling a run play till the fourth down until fourth quarter after the Gibbs fumble. Letting Gibbs be the first guy. What's AM radio? You know, we say we have a deep linebacker core, but it's actually not that deep. It's more it's perfect for the roster and the scheme we run. Yeah, they want to take away AM radio because you know why? Because it's harder for the FCC to monitor it. It's easy to start. What's my thoughts? What's my thoughts? Suckfeld is gone, and I'm happier than a pig in shit. I'm James Houston. Uh, I I disagree. We need to replace Reynolds. I don't think so. On James Houston, um, until he played against the third stringers and in the last preseason game because he hadn't done it, he hadn't shown much of a bend. He hadn't shown much of a burst. He hadn't shown much of a change of direction skill. I'm glad he got a sack and he might have played himself onto the roster, but eh, up until that point, I was okay with letting him go. I'm just being honest because I think that broken ankle is going to hinder him more in the future than everybody thinks. Right. This is a team game. No one player loses a game. We win and lose as a team. Well, back then, FM was nothing but long hair music. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yep. Sheila Hamp put in competent people to let them do their job. 100%, Patty. MCDC said we need a big wide receiver just because he wants one. I get it. He wants one. It isn't a need. I disagree because we haven't really had one. And right now, there's one in free agency we can go grab, and it's not named Michael Thomas. Bring on the long play FM format of my youth. And Noah Brown was just cut. He wasn't waived, he was cut. That means he's a free agent. Go snag him. You don't have to wait for a waiver wire placement. I know about long hair because I played the cello for 4 years. I know, Dad. We talked about that. That was the first I knew that about you. If they want a big wide receiver, there's two or three that are in free agency or on the waiver wire right now. It depends on if you want to wait for your draft placement to be able to get them, or if you just want to sign them outright. If they want them, they can go get them. There's Hakeem Butler. There's Tim Patrick, and now on the waiver wire. Now in free, Tim Patrick's on the waiver wire. Noah Brown is cut. So that means we have got rid of 10 people. That's a lot more to go. There's 27 more to go, people. Adrian Amos is released by Jags. He hasn't been worth a damn since he left the Packers, so I don't like it. We have a good safety room. We don't have problems in the safety room. Noah Brown was cut, which means he's a free agent. Released is not waived. I would take Brown over Patrick because he doesn't have the injury history. Patrick has not played a healthy season in 3 years. So, yes, I would take Brown over Patrick. Alex Leatherwood is cut by Chargers like we didn't see that coming. He's ass. Yeah, exactly. He was a number 3 wide receiver there last year. I know. I've said this, Pat Rothwell. I've talked about it. If we're gonna go get somebody, I would get Noah Brown right off of the free agent list. He was just cut. So there we are. That's where we're at. Wow, Brown was on my fantasy last season. Wow. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you, Lion King. He's not waived, he's cut. He's not going back to the practice squad. Why? Desmond Ritter is cut. That is a surprise? I'm not sure if you covered it already, but what are your thoughts on Pack trading for Malik Willis? Is Malik Willis better than Sean Clifford? Maybe. Is he better than Pratt? Probably not. But since they traded for him and there's no free 3 QB on the roster anymore, they're keeping Willis and waiving Pratt. I want a Big Mac. I don't mean I need it. Patty laughed. I would take Brown as well, JB. I'm just saying. How old is Brown? He's 4 years in. He's either 26 or 27. I believe. Let me double check that. I'm just guessing off the top of my head. Okay, he's 28. And yes, it's released, not waived. I just verified it. He's 28 years young, in the middle of his prime. So there's guys out there in free agency that we could go get if we want a big wide receiver. There's guys out there on the waiver wire that we just have to wait our turn because the waiver wire clock doesn't start till 4 p.m. And the waiver wire guy that I might consider is Hakeem Butler out of everybody. I wouldn't take Patrick over Hakeem Butler. I understand that, but we really don't need anything other than MCDC saying he wants a big wide receiver on the roster. He thinks it's a need. I don't think it is. But out of all of them, I'd sign Noah Brown. I'd sign Noah Brown in a heartbeat. You don't have to wait for the waiver wire. 6'2", 225. Yeah, he's 6'2" and 5'8". That's why he's listed on some sites at 6'2", some sites at James Pierre is cut by the Commanders. He's useless. Um, he was awful. You know, I don't care about other teams. I'm trying to pay attention to the Lions waiver wire right now because this is a Lions show. Uh, the wide receiver stuff, that's okay, but Man, what a day. Th- Oh, I know, my bad. I care about our cuts too. We can pay attention to all that stuff after 4 p.m. There's certain players that I looked for that was drafted in the last couple of years when they're cut. I say something about them because I felt Andre Carter. Any ideas why they would cut Noah Brown? They have a deep roster. Would you take Brown over Butler? Yes, because he's proven in the NFL he's a solid receiver. Hey, brother JB and Lions Cats, maybe Dan just wants the short yardage players. That means he wants quickness and short yardage. What a change from years past with Brad and MCDC in charge. I no longer worry about what the previous idiots were going to do in the offseason. I know. Butler only showed out in the UFL. No, because you got to trade for Terrence Marshall unless he's waived or cut. But the best news of the day was Nate Sudfeld being gone. You can say what you want, but Nate Sudfeld being gone is probably the best news we could have got as Lions fans. Out of everything else we do, it's all gravy now. Because everybody was worried they were going to keep Sudfeld and waive Hooker. Oh, he's on the waiver wire? Then yeah, I'd put in a bid on him. But remember, we're 28th, 29th on the waiver wire? And Terrence Marshall is Terrence Marshall is fast, but you know what? He's done nothing in the NFL. Granted, he's had garbage QBs. He's had Matt Corral, Sam Darnold, and Bryce Young throwing to him. That's not that good. And Nate Sudfeld was cut at about 11:40 a.m. this morning. He was cut, released. He was not waived. That's the best news all day. Right. I don't want Robert Woods either. Even though he's an outside guy and he's big, Hooker is the number 2. Yes. It was announced this morning that Hooker is our backup quarterback. So that means they're making the decision whether to waive or release Jake Fromm, who is actually a 4-year guy. So that's the only decision to be made on Jake Fromm is whether to waive him so he has a chance to come back to the practice squad or to cut him. That's it. You remember before that's the best news we've gotten this offseason. Say what you want. He was cut. That means if we have a practice squad spot left, they have to sign him to it. Hallelujah. Praise be the football gods. They saw the light. You know what happened? Dan Campbell found the thumb drive this morning. It's now destroyed. There will be no more turds on this roster. Well, seeing how there's no free third QB on the roster, in order to get Fromm back on without re-sign him again, they have to waive him. What was I doing when Trashfield was cut? I was monitoring Twitter and watching Russell Wayne on his show, Main Event 365. Uh, and I did a happy dance. Not gonna lie. No, I was watching the Packers show. I forgot it happened in between the 11 and 12 o'clock hour. I almost didn't make it to the show. I was celebrating so much. I told Minnesota fans, "Hey, Nate Sudfeld had been cut. You can sign him for a backup to Darnold." That's what we'll ask in the future. Right. I don't want to have to trade for. So we have Goff and Hendon. That's it. Yes, that's all you can have on a roster anymore. Where I wonder if I have that tidbit in here to show. No, I don't. I will read the quote from Tom Pellisario yesterday prior to all the cuts coming in. Important note as teams construct their initial 53-man rosters. NFL teams were informed that the NFLPA, not the owners, not the coaches, not Goodell, the NFL Players Association vetoed the revised emergency third quarterback rule that would allow teams to elevate bona fide QB from the practice squad an unlimited number of times. So the rule reverted to the 2023 version, which says the emergency third QB must be on the 53-man roster and not an elevation. So that means, right. I watched Fromm in Georgia, and the kid is a gamer, 100%. But at the same time, we can put him on the practice squad. If someone gets hurt, our backup becomes the starter, and then you elevate your guy to the active roster, is what that rule means. You can't just put him on the roster and then say, okay, put him back down every time you face a good sacking defense. As per your sources, what move will we do pre Sunday night start versus Rams? Well, we'll fly out on Friday. We will have a light practice or a walkthrough or a rest day. That's about it. Uh, oh wait, no, we're home. Yeah, I know. Arizona released Desmond Ritter. I knew he was no good. No, emergency QBs were getting paid. They were getting paid their practice squad roster. What they're saying is they want guys to get active roster money instead of practice squad money. Because when you elevate them, you automatically get a pay raise. There's a minimum on the practice squad and a minimum on an NFL roster. When they were practice squad guys that you could bring them up, they didn't get active roster money. And yes, it is that time where we talk. He still has yet to practice. If he comes back to practice today or tomorrow, they still have till Monday to get him healthy. He has to be practicing on the field before Wednesday so he can play. So that's the NFL rule. That's not my rule. That's about injured players. He's still dealing with the hammy. He hasn't practiced. But our first sponsor, this is just for chat sports talk of the Bears. Fuck the Bears. I don't shit. So it's time to talk about them the week before we got it. And of course, FTP. Fuck the Packers too. And of course, fuck the Vikings. Teams can still carry the third QB on the roster as long as they're on the 53-man, no back and forth, which would be stupid for a team like the Vikings. Maybe not a bad deal. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They can still carry a third QB on the roster, but they can have them on the practice squad. They can have them on the practice squad. Just when they elevate them, it has to be after an injury, and it'll be the week after that injury. Fuck the Bum Bears, fuck the Pack, laughing my ass off. Hey, we got to have fun with our fan bases because, we go through the Huddle Sports app, which came out of NSC North the Huddle, the home of the bad takes, where three teams automatically think your take is awful, even if it's spot on. Can't tell me I'm wrong on that one, Darren. But last but not least, the sponsor that pays me. It is Brandon Service right at the corner of South Grand Traverse and West Atherton Road, 602 West Atherton Road. Where? In Flint, Michigan. Flint, where the water is shit, but the tires are good. Used tires starting at $40 a piece, depending on size and condition. And new tires called to get your quote. 810-233-8230. Talk to George, Red, or myself. And the Lion King himself and Steve Bauer have both came in and got tires for me. The rest of you that live in the area have been hiding. Fuck the Bears, fuck the Jesus, and fuck the Vikings. Love you guys. It's been a pleasure talking football with you all day. I'm going to go see if there's any more cut news yet. Nothing. Nothing. Yep, you bought tires from Smoke, and they're still great, right? I mean, active roster instead of 5 linebackers, instead of 1 extra QB and 4 LBs. Is that correct? Yes, they can do that. Or they can run with 4 or 5 defensive ends instead of 5 or 6. Or they can run with 4 or 5 defensive tackles instead of, to add an extra QB. I don't think we're going to take away from depth anywhere on the roster to make room for a third QB is my point. Thank you for watching Lions Talk with Smoke and Jeremy B. It has been my pleasure to bring you the news of Suckfeld first and foremost right out the gate because it made my day. I know it made everybody else's too because a lot of you were actually secretly worried that he was making this roster. But here is a word from Huddle Sports Network on how to find us on Amazon, Fire Stick, and across the social media sphere.
Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick TV, Facebook, and YouTube. Get all your sports news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoking Jeremy B, Wrestling Roundup, The Big Football Show, and more, Shield TV, Lions Villain Report, and Red Zone Rant. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla, Grosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, The Bodkin Show, Spirit of Detroit Podcast, and Maniacs. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Skull Gang 365, The Huddle Sports Network Open Mic, First and 10 with Foz, Main Event Football Show, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports. Spitballing Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, Puckett, 313 Den Podcast, The Guys Huddle, Shots from the Sideline, Let's Talk Sports, The Michigan Truth Sports Podcast, Off the Rails, NFC Northeast, Power Hours, and Detroit Lions News. Make sure you follow, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Hope you like all the shows.
Try every day to be a better person than you were the day before. The only way to make the world a better place.